very much, Bob Pisani. For more on where Bitcoin is heading, let's bring in our crypto baller, Brian Kelly. He joins us now live from the Hoover Institution's Monetary Policy Conference. And BK, I know that there are a lot of Fed officials roaming around there, and key to Bitcoin's future is how the Fed is going to view Bitcoin. There have been a number of white papers put out by regional Fed offices around the country. So is there a general consensus at this point?
No, I would say there's not necessarily the general consensus, although there's been a lot of thought about it put towards it. You know, when I would go to events like this in the years past, you would kind of dismiss Bitcoin, but it's been brought up several times at this conference and taken quite seriously. And I think you have to, with the market cap at $500 billion at this point. I think it's a serious market.
Is there any?
Fortunately, it never hit $500 billion. It was close, but he's wrong.
Regional Fed, in your view, that's sort of taking the lead on this? I mean, you would imagine the New York Fed might take the lead, but the St. Louis Fed actually put out a white paper pretty recently about this.
Yeah, each individual Fed has done some good work on this. I know Steve Leisman has been talking to a lot of them today at this conference. I have not noticed a particular Fed that's taking the lead, although the St. Louis Fed, what was interesting about that paper is they really compared Bitcoin to a fiat currency and how the valuation was very similar. So we talk a lot about, oh, is Bitcoin in a bubble or is Bitcoin not in a bubble? But they just said essentially that the value of Bitcoin is the same, or at least determined in the same way as fiat currency.
And they also sort of acknowledge that there is a place for digital currency, for cryptocurrency specifically, which.
But, you know, the main thing that they're kind of missing here, and I'll let the discussion kind of continue, is that it's not being used, at least for now, because of scaling issues. It's not a currency. It's actually used as a store of value, and we'll see what they say.
I thought was pretty interesting in terms of acknowledging the value of Bitcoin with a function. In terms of the most recent stealth rally, BK, what are some of the catalysts you see that could possibly keep this going higher?
We've seen a couple different things. Bob just mentioned in his report about Goldman Sachs trading Bitcoin futures. If we just kind of look back historically, the last time that Goldman made a big move into the cryptocurrency space was back when they bought into Circle Financial. Bitcoin was at $200 at that point in time. So Goldman is definitely, and I know you guys covered it, they are definitely the leader among the institutions in this space. So that's one catalyst we have. Number two, we could get some regulatory clarity. And the one thing that's interesting is Bitcoin is clearly a currency. I think almost everybody that I've talked to and people here at this event are thinking about Bitcoin as a currency and not a security. We'll decide later on about the other ones, but Bitcoin's getting a little bit of lift from that. And then finally, the big event of the year is Blockchain Week in New York. That's coming up next week, or May 14th. And essentially everybody from the world will be descending upon New York to talk about cryptocurrency. So a little bit of a playground for BK.
All right, we'll see you back here then.
So I don't understand why that last point, like I don't get it. There's plenty of crypto events, so I don't understand how that would be a big issue or a big catalyst. So he didn't mention the ETF or the ability for crypto, because right now institutions cannot hold crypto. They can only short it because there's no custodianship. They're not allowed to actually legally hold on to the crypto, and there's a bunch of laws on setting up custodian accounts in order to create ETFs. He did not mention that, and then he also didn't mention, which I've been mentioning, the actual application, because a lot of these coins and a lot of these projects are this year and next year going to be rolling out a bunch of their test nets and their programs, and that's actually the most important thing, because a lot of this crypto space is just pie in the sky projects that are going to be executed this year and next year. So that execution and actual use of their projects is probably another huge catalyst that they failed to mention. But I still agree with them on balance, and they do make some great points. And it is interesting that the Fed is clearing Bitcoin and basically saying it's not a security, which is great. But what remains to see is what they're going to do with the ERC20 Ethereum tokens, if they're going to be considered as securities. And like I said, with regulations, they're always slow, inefficient, so it's going to take some time. But it's cool to have them talk about it. And once again, it's interesting that it's the Federal Reserve, but Bitcoin is, or cryptocurrency, it's a global asset class. So obviously, what we're covering in the U.S. is important because it is the largest market in the world. But at the same time, there's a bunch of other markets as well. So you just can't have a U.S. centric view when you're covering cryptocurrencies. But let me know what you guys think, and I will talk to you guys soon.